Welcome back to the Innovation Series. I'm joined here today by Matt Humphreys, the Sales Director for Intellian Tech. Matt, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's fairly well understood now that no area of the super yacht market is evolving as quickly and has so many demands on it as the satcomms kind of market. And maybe you could explain exactly why that is.
Yeah, so the demand for data nowadays is in growing, 10 times every month. So it's growing in fact as we are in land base or at home or in the office, and people at sea just want to have the same connections as they do at home. So currently we don't really have that technology, or the technology we do have is very expensive. There's things like latency issues, meaning that you don't get the exact response time back from the satellite as you would when you're at home. So I think that in the development in technologies in terms of video, gaming, video conferencing, all this kind of thing is obviously demanding a lot more data. And specifically at home, if you're used to a specific speed or a specific technology, you want to have the same on a vessel. So the new technologies that are coming out, they're going to definitely make some changes in that kind of market.
And have you noticed that there's a more general interest and understanding from the lay public and by extension super yacht users into this technology, the terms and what's happening?
Yeah, so I think from what we see in the news every day, there's some big names talking about the future proof of technology and the future of satellites specifically now. I think there's a lot of interest and people want to know, well, if we can have this at home, or if we can talk about this, why can't we have it at sea? So especially in the super yacht market, we've seen that any kind of idea of this new technology being developed or in the news, or or even a sniff of it actually happening, they want to know more. So we've had a lot of interest into this kind of market, and we're doing a lot more. For the past 2 years, we've been innovating into these new markets. And it's the yachting industry that have been the most interested, for sure, purely because of the demands they need on board in terms of speed.
Is there a marked difference in the demands that you get from the super yacht industry as opposed to perhaps military or commercial?
Yeah, in terms of bandwidth, for sure. There's kind of different. It kind of depends on the industry. So we have the cruise industry, which is quite big for us. So we have quite a big market share in cruise. So you can imagine some of these big cruise vessels that have, some have up to 9,000 people on board, including crew and guests. With that many people on board, you're going to need some fairly hefty bandwidth. So some of the technologies that we have on cruise can also be replicated in yachts. So for example, some very big yachts that may have the budget to go with these kinds of technologies are actually almost getting the same speeds that they're getting on a cruise ship for 50 or 60 passengers as opposed to thousands. So it's possible. Yeah.
So you've seen a flow of kind of innovations come from the extremely high demands of something like a cruise ship, and you can use that to focus in on the super yacht market.
Exactly. Yeah. So the only difference is that, for somebody using a very high bandwidth package on a yacht for themselves, let's say they want to do, video conferencing or streaming movies or downloading a lot of content on a cruise ship, that would be shared between, thousands of people. So it's a price to pay, because airtime isn't cheap, but there's still limitations on there. There's the way that the satellite system or the satellite network works is, the geostationary satellite that we use today is 36,000 kilometers away. So the time it takes for you to transmit a signal to the satellite and then receive it back, then there's always going to be that slight delay. Or
even at the speed of light, you can still have a delay.
Exactly. Yeah, they call it latency. So it's the latency on a geostationary network is 600 milliseconds. So it's 0.6 of a second. So it can be quite annoying if it's a phone call, for example, because you always get that delay from when you speak and to when you hear the delay back. But with the new technologies that are coming, that's going to change.
And we're talking about future proofing, and I think something that's been in the news a lot is the low Earth and medium Earth orbit satellites. And so tell us maybe a bit more about what exactly you mean by future-proofing for the inevitable kind of evolution of the market.
Yeah, so the main difference is between, so geostationary, as I mentioned, is what we use today in general. So 75% of satellite communications now on this kind of market, in this kind of bandwidth, is using geostationary satellites. So the new networks that are coming in, that people are seeing on the news from, people like SpaceX and Facebook and Amazon and these kind of guys is LEO, so low Earth orbit satellites. And what that means is the satellites are much closer to the Earth. So, but that does, come with some challenges. So because they're closer to the Earth, it means they're not geostationary. So geostationary means that the satellite's always in the same position at the same time. So as the Earth is rotating, the satellite is moving in the same speed as the Earth's rotation. But with a LEO satellite, they're actually moving very fast. So you need to track multiple satellites at the same time in order to keep that communication.
Is that why we see so many in the sky?
Exactly, yeah. So LEO satellites would be a constellation of up to 1,000 satellites, for example. So, SpaceX are planning on doing over 1,000 different LEO satellites. But the other advantage is that it's going to give you totally global coverage as well. So with geostationary satellites, you don't get total coverage, or you can, but it's very limited in depending on when you get further away from the footprint of the satellite. But with the LEO satellite, it's totally global. Even the polar caps are covered, and anywhere you are, anywhere in the world, whether you're in the middle of the Atlantic or up in the Arctic, it's totally covered. But the biggest advantage is because how close they are to the Earth, the latency is much lower. So, for example, it'll take 600 milliseconds to send and receive a signal from with a geostationary satellite. But with a low Earth orbit satellite, it can take 30 milliseconds, which is very close to what we see today in standard broadband connection. So it's almost it will be almost exactly the same. You won't notice any difference basically than what we have at home or in the office.
So using that network, Intellian can further provide the technology and the connectivity on board that you have that seamless transition from what we expect on shore. Essentially anywhere in the world.
Exactly. So a couple of years ago, we kind of caught on to this technology quite early, actually. So we started developing them, or we started manufacturing them 2 years ago. It's been a lot longer in the pipeline before that. So we brought out a new range of antennas. It was launched about 18 months ago. And these antennas have this future-proof capability of tracking LEO and MEO as well. So medium Earth orbit and low Earth orbit satellites. So we have that technology already built into the antennas. So when you need to upgrade within the next year or two, so it's not going to be far away, you have that ability to just switch and then you've got the next best thing, basically. Yeah. And we've incorporated that into our whole new product line.
Well, it sounds like the preparation's there and in an incredibly fast-moving sector. I think we're all interested to see where it goes next. So, Matt, thanks again for being with us. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.